What up? Happy Saturday, coming off a 24-hour bug that sucked ass. Let's talk about caffeine and the ultimate protocol. What up, Senorita Alvita? Senorita, hey, Gunny, Anu, Lacey, Lori. Okay, so when I first started drinking, let me know if those dogs are too loud, by the way, I'll go inside. When I started drinking caffeine, I didn't start drinking caffeine until, I think my second to last year in college. When, I was, diving deep into pre-physical therapy. I'm not, a student, honestly. I don't consider myself a good student or, that. I really struggled in college, really struggled. And I was doing pre-physical therapy, taking, a full bio series, full physics series, full chem series, a lot of these sciences that are very complex. And it would take me a lot longer to get the same things done that my classmates were. So I was spending a lot of time in the library studying. And that's where I first started drinking, started with energy drinks. And it really fucked me up, to be honest with you. I would go and just abuse the shit out of it for days, and then I'd come back down and be like, oh, it's just because I was just studying so much. And that's why I'm having these massive crashes where I would be in bed all day long, and I would just be like, oh, I'm just studying so hard. And it wasn't that at all. It was that I was abusing the shit out of caffeine during college. And kind of segue later into life, graduated, decided not to go the pre-physical therapy route, and decided to go actually, I was like, oh, I'm gonna take a year off and I'm just gonna work at the local Equinox. So if you're familiar with the west side, it was Westwood, the one I worked at. That is right by UCLA. And so I was commuting there, but I had a 45-minute commute, and I was new there. I was very green, and I just was hungry. I was hungry as fuck, and I really just wanted to get as many clients as possible and work with as many people and get as much of experience as possible. And so I took the clients no one would take, the 5 a.m.ers. And so I'd wake up at basically 3:45, and then I'd work until, 8 hours, and then I'd have an evening shift as well. So I'd have a split schedule. And I was just, again, still in that cycle. And I'm like, why can't I keep my healthy lifestyle? I would do really well with my macros and crush it, and then I would get these insane cravings and crashes, and I would just binge and just not be able to control myself. And it was just it was almost like a devil was on my shoulder and my back, just eating food for me. I just could not get satiated. I just couldn't stop. So that continued into basically when I rented space out from another gym. Mind you, I've been doing this for a very long time. So then I rented space out from a gym, and then I started my own gym. When I started my own gym, that's when it got horrible. And I do know that this was a huge reason that I was not able to adhere to really any nutrition. And I was at one point I was up to 220, 230, and not diesel. My workout was super inconsistent. And it was because I was abusing caffeine. And so I don't want you guys to have to go through what I went through. Also probably very different circumstances and all that stuff, but I've researched this shit, and caffeine is the most researched ergogenic aid out there, meaning that's a performance enhancer, and if you use it, it can be really, really, really powerful tool for cognition and hormone balance and performance and fat loss and just a lot of different things if used right. Now, if used wrong, which typically is the case, my dumbass used to do, to obviously an extreme extent, it can really negate any results. It can make it way too impossible to stick to your deficit. It can make it really counteract your hormone balance, specifically cortisol, and it really just fucks you up completely. And so I'm going to give you the exact protocol for caffeine that is going to be optimal for fat loss and for hormone health. Okay. Now, let me dispel a myth and then giving you the protocol each time. Okay. Now, you probably heard no caffeine after 2 p.m., right? Caffeine has what's called a half-life, and it also has a quarter life. So the half-life and the quarter life is basically the amount of time it takes for your body to get out of your system. Now, the quarter life takes longer than the half-life. The half-life of caffeine is it's about 6 to 8 hours. That's why that 2 p.m., assuming that you're going to sleep at 9 p.m., will clear out of your system by then. Now, there's also something called the quarter life. Now, the quarter life, that stays in your system for about 12 hours. So up to 12 hours, 10 to 12 hours. So if you are drinking caffeine up to 2 p.m., you're still going to have, so for example, if you have like, let's say 250 milligrams per day, you're going to have a quarter of that still in your circulation, your bloodstream, that's still giving you a fight or flight response, which is what caffeine does, right? Now, taking that into account, that 2 p.m. cutoff, that 12 p.m. cutoff, it's actually bullshit. Like, you really should stop drinking caffeine 12 hours before you go to sleep. And that will really help you optimize your sleep. It'll really help you sleep a lot deeper. And if we're looking at everything in terms, I always reference the fat loss hierarchy. If we're looking at the bottom of the chain, right? I'm not going to cover the bottom of the chain, but the first two things that are most important for your fat loss are number one, hormone optimization. Number two is going to be sleep and recovery. So if you're not sleeping 7 to 9 hours, if you're sleeping 7 to 9 hours and it's not deep, you're not getting a lot of REM sleep, you're fucked. You're dead in the water, right? Good luck if your nutrition and your exercise and everything's fucking dialed in. Doesn't matter, because you're fucking everything up with your sleep. I don't care what you say. I don't care how many of you women are like, oh, I sleep 5 or 6 hours and I feel fine. You don't feel fine. You don't. You just don't know what it feels like to be good. I cannot fucking tell you how many women have come to my program. I sleep 5 or 6 hours. I feel great. Okay. We give them 7, 9 hours. Like, I didn't realize how shitty I felt. Like, thank you for changing my life. And their mood, their productivity, their like income, because they're working so much better, it goes like 10x. Okay. So don't sit here and tell me that I get 5 or 6 hours sleep and that's enough for me, because it's fucking not. You just don't know how it feels to feel good again. All right. Women in menopause, you guys know this. You know how shitty you feel and how much brain fog you're having. Just like, you're operating drunk, okay? So imagine how you could operate sober. Now, so that's the number one, is don't cut caffeine out at 2 p.m. Cut it out a lot earlier. Cut it out 12 hours before you go to sleep. So if you go to sleep at 9 p.m., you should be cutting it off by 9 a.m., ideally, right? Now, the other thing is, people are, and this has been hotly debated, and it's something there's both sides of the story, right? There's the tolerance that you have, right? Because if you drink habitually, it doesn't have as big as a cortisol reaction if you don't drink habitually. And by the way, if you guys have questions, drop them in. What up, Miss Millie? Velma Longoria. K. Kearney? Effley? Yeah, if you guys have questions on caffeine, drop them in there. I don't know where you guys are tuning in, so I can help you with whatever you have. I mean, unless you're at 15% body fat, you feel great all the time, your hormones are completely optimized, you're good. But if not, I'm sure you have some questions about caffeine intake. C-Wilk57. I like the hedge. It's a good headshot. But anyway, so number one is not cutting caffeine off at 2 p.m., cutting it off way earlier, okay? Now, the second thing is what I was just talking about, is the tolerance, right? Now, we have tolerance to caffeine that builds up over time. And there's studies that show that if you're a habitual caffeine consumer, the cortisol response is a lot. It's just, you don't have the same cortisol response. It's not like spikes. It's kind of like a little bit. Instead of it going like that, it's like that. There still is a spike, right? But it's just not as exacerbated as non-habitual caffeine consumers. There's a lot of research of your cortisol awakening response, your CAR, which is basically what it sounds like when you wake up and your cortisol spikes, because that's how we function, like get ready to go, and your cortisol naturally goes up. That spikes at 45 to 90 minutes, 30 to 60 minutes upon waking, right? So your cortisol is going to be at its height 30 to 60 minutes after you wake. Now, if you're having caffeine and you're having that 30 to 60 minute spike, you're fighting fire with fire, right? So you're gonna have a lot harder time getting that cortisol down and getting it regulated, okay? So a better idea, a better option is to wait 1 hour to 90 minutes before having your caffeine. Okay, so really having that. The other thing is overall intake. Okay, so we got through number 1, which was cutting off caffeine not at 2 p.m., way earlier than that. The other thing is waiting 60 to 90 minutes for your cortisol awakening response to come back down, right? The other thing we want to talk about is there's a lot of like the FDA. Not the greatest, like in terms of just overall recommendations. 400 milligrams of caffeine. This is my daily intake right here, right? That's why you see this cup I split in half. And I'm gonna go over why in that in a second. And I'm gonna go into like the cleanliness and caffeine choices. But if you guys have questions, by the way, drop them in. I'm still looking at these questions as we go through. 400 milligrams, it's a fucking lot. It's a lot of fucking caffeine, right? And the more caffeine you have, the more of a cortisol response you have. So getting that around, especially if you are pretty tolerant, you want to stay lower. 300 would be pushing it. Ideally, try to get all our clients around 200 milligrams per day maximum. Okay, so 200 milligrams maximum is what you want to add for the day total. Now a cup of coffee is about 100-ish. Espresso I think is like 60 milligrams. This one is 200 milligrams. I'll kind of take you through what that looks like for me specifically. But you don't want to exceed 200 milligrams. That's ideal, okay? The lower the better. You want to think, what's the most minimum effective dose? How much minimum can I take to actually feel the response that I need to, okay? So don't go above 200. The other thing is, they do a lot of research on the doing it all at once, right? Getting a big flush of caffeine all at once, or spacing it out. Spacing it out has been shown, obviously, better for hormone health, specifically cortisol, better for cognition, better for energy. So if you can spread all your caffeine out throughout the morning, so for example, if you wake up at 5 a.m., have your first cup of coffee or energy, whatever it is, at 6:30 a.m., okay, and then 6:30 a.m., and you're cutting it out at 11, okay, so you have 200 milligrams total. You can split that up into 65 milligrams, like you have like 3 espressos, you can cut it into two coffees, like you can cut it however you want, but you do want to kind of like microdose it. Honestly, every hour would probably be the most ideal, 1 to 2 hours. So basically from 6:30 a.m. to 11 a.m., you're having, all your caffeine within that 3.5 hours, but you're spreading it out so it's not so big jolt and too much on your hormone, your basically your whole endocrine system, cortisol, even looking at insulin. I'm going to hormone health a little bit deeper in the future, but that would be the most ideal, is microdosing it through the morning instead of just having all of it at once, spreading it out, okay? Not only from a productivity, but also from a fat loss perspective in terms of your workouts, and then also, especially if you're working out in the morning, but also like having those, the energy and that productivity just evened out, okay? So microdose it. What AV? I don't know what that question is. Okay, cool. Now let's go into type, right? You see, I'm drinking energy drink. Like, energy drinks are so bad for you. Yeah, they're terrible, right? If we kind of look at this, let's look at the profile first. Choline, taurine, whatever, like, doesn't matter. The only things I would say on this is the, what's it called? The caffeine is from natural sources, which I like. The natural and artificial flavors, no, not good. The other thing is, I think it's sweetened with sucralose, not ideal. So besides those two things, it's fine, right? We talked about the 80-20 rule. I'm looking at 80% of these ingredients. They're fine, okay? So it's not all going to be in a fixed container. Also, like, what's realistic versus what's optimal. I like drinking these. It's part of my, good question, low carb crazy. So coffee is going to be the best because it's going to have the most antioxidants. It's going to have a really good nutrient profile. It has fiber in it. But if you like energy drinks, and you're coming to my program, and I'm having you change a bunch of shit, I'm not going to have you change that. That's majoring in the minors, and I want to make this as realistic as possible. So what's realistic versus optimal? Not optimal, realistic for me, right? So you got to think, what's that for you? Exactly. So that's a really, really good idea. So kind of to go off that low carb crazy, her question was, what about drinking a large coffee throughout the morning slowly? It's a really good question. I would say you're on the right track, right? So if we're talking about a large cup of coffee, probably 150 milligrams, right? Waiting an hour and a half, you wake up at 5 a.m., you're drinking that at 6:30 a.m., and then you're cutting it off. Say you go to sleep at 9, you're cutting it off at 9 a.m. ideally, right? So your caffeine window is between 6:30 and 9 a.m. And if you just drink that slowly, that's perfect. That's going to be ideal for insulin response, for your overall cortisol response, for your metabolism. Caffeine's a thermogenic, right? It gets your heart rate up. It makes your body warmed up. It gets your body warmed up. You're burning more calories. Okay, caffeine also helps you mobilize fat, helps it get into the bloodstream. It helps it actually get oxidized too, used as energy. So, yeah, low carb crazy, that 1000%. Laura B, Susan Angelucci. That's one thing Southern California does not have enough of, is Italians. Like 2 Italian friends. We need more out here. Mom's from Jersey, and everyone, we have a lot of clients from Jersey. What questions do you guys have on caffeine? I went through the whole protocol, so I'm more than happy to go through it. If you guys want me to go through it again, drop an emoji. I'll go through it real quick. But I dispelled a bunch of myths about caffeine too, such as the cutoff window, the amount you should have per day, the sources, right? All that stuff. Okay, no more questions. Okay, cool. Hope this was helpful. Hope that my caffeine story maybe resonated with someone, because yeah, it's very highly abused by a lot of people, and a lot of energy drinks, not like this, but like the Bang energy drinks, the ones that are 300, 400, 500, I haven't seen 500, 400. Okay, Stella, that makes sense. Okay, I'll go through the product, the Stella, thank you for that. I'll go through the whole protocol again. So, number 1, don't cut off caffeine at 2 p.m. Cut it out way earlier, ideally 10 to 12 hours. So 12 hours would be optimal. 10 is kind of where you're still in the good gray area, and that's for the quarter life process of the caffeine. Caffeine has a half-life, caffeine has a quarter life. So not cutting off at 2 p.m., cutting off a lot earlier than that, okay? Basically 10 hours before you go to sleep would be ideal, okay? 12 would be optimal, 10 ideal. Okay, the other thing is waiting 60 to 90 minutes before your first caffeine to really help that cortisol activation response and not dysregulate your cortisol. Cortisol is the gatekeeper to hormone optimization. Not going above 200 milligrams per day. FDA recommends 400 milligrams. That's way too fucking much. 200 milligrams. And then microdosing your caffeine. Carb Crazy was asking a question about, like, what if I just had a large cup of coffee? That's exactly what you want to do. So, for example, you wake up at 5 a.m., your first cup of coffee is 6:30, and you're just kind of dragging that out through the morning. That's ideal. That's perfect. Okay? As far as types go, you know, you see me drinking this Rise Energy drink that has 200 milligrams. This is my full day of caffeine. That's realistic for me. I like it. 80% of these ingredients are clean and good. 20% that suck ass, but it's natural caffeine. So I'm not gonna get all crazy. All right, love you guys.